The international break is kind of over. Arsenal return to action on the weekend, and we can't wait to see our Gunners back in action. We're going to round up some of the performances of our players out on international duty, have some discussions around some of those names, and we're going to answer a very, very interesting question that came up in the YouTube comments just a few days ago. Lots and lots, as always, to get into on another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Thanks for joining me. Hey everybody, how we doing? Hope you're all well. Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. Feeling good, feeling excited. Premier League football returns in just a matter of days. And I can't wait to get down to Emirates Stadium on Saturday to see the Arsenal in action. It's a game that we've got to win. It's a game that we're going to preview in a lot more detail as the week goes on. But yeah, I think when you get to this first international break at the kind of start of the season, you always feel it comes around just a little bit too soon. Like you don't get the opportunity really to get back into the swing of things before the international break comes up and basically, puts a bit of a spanner in the works, doesn't it? Particularly when you lose the game before the international break, I always feel like as an Arsenal fan, we lose to Liverpool. You want to see us go out the next week and put that right and put that to bed and move forward. And you can't because there's internationals, which means that you then stew over the result at Anfield for much longer than you probably should. As a result of that, you probably overanalyze. I'd imagine I'm not the only one that's probably done that over the course of the last, week and a half or whatever. So yeah, glad that football returns and Arsenal are back in action in the Premier League at the weekend. What we're going to do on today's pod, we're going to go through some of the performances of our players while playing and representing their countries. We're going to talk Noni Madueke. We're going to do Declan Rice. We're going to do Martin Odegaard, Ricardo Calafiori, Piero Hincapie. We'll tell you how much Martinelli and Gabriel were involved for Brazil, and we'll bring you up to speed with how it went for some of our other players, as well as answering a very, very interesting question about Gabriel Martinelli, which came up in the YouTube comments just a few days ago. Now, it's interesting that when I logged on to this morning's live stream, there was already a debate ongoing between yourselves in the live chat box about Gabriel Martinelli. I guess that was probably prompted by the fact that in the title, I've got a question. A positional switch for Martinelli. Will that see him get back to or close to his best? We're going to discuss that. We're going to bring you up to speed with exactly what that question was, and we'll answer it the best we can. So quite a bit to unpack, quite a bit to do on today's pod. So yeah, thank you for being with me. If you haven't done so already, and you're a regular viewer, leave us a like on the video, guys. You know what you are going to get. You're here pretty much every day, which is amazing. I'm super, super grateful for that. So you know what's coming. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Check us out on Patreon as well. Patreon.com/the Chronicles of a Gooner. The link is in the description below, and you can support the podcast by signing up there. Also, our blog entries start this week as well. So you'll get access to the blog, whether you're a paid member or not. So our paid members will get access to our additional video and podcast content, and they'll get all the normal pods ad-free. I've had a couple of people message me saying that sometimes the podcast comes out for them on Apple before it does on Patreon. I would just say, if that's the case, close your Patreon app and reopen it, because I absolutely 100% make sure that I upload the podcast onto Patreon before I do it to Apple. So it could be a case that your Patreon app is not updating on its own, and that could be down to a number of things. It could be because your phone memory is quite full, and so the kind of auto download update function on your Patreon app isn't working, or isn't or isn't active, I should say. So yeah, just check that out. But we definitely put the pod on Patreon first, and we put the pod on Patreon with no adverts. So that's one of the perks. The blog entries, you'll get access to them for free, but you need to sign up as a free member on the Patreon page. It doesn't cost a thing. It just means that you're putting down an email address, which means that we can get in contact with you, which means that you can contact me directly. And it just makes for a much better community feel. So if you're interested in that, check it out, patreon.com/The Chronicles of a Gooner. Right, shall we get into some of last night and beyond's performances on the international stage? And we're going to start with England and our England representatives. Now, frustratingly, Miles Lewis-Skelly was left out of the England squad altogether. They took, I think, 24 players out to Belgrade. They could only pick 23, and Miles Lewis-Skelly was the one that was left out. He's fit. There's nothing to worry about on that front. Not entirely sure why Thomas Tuchel took that decision, but he did. It would have probably come as a bit of a blow to Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's, established himself as an international not that long ago, quite recently, in fact, and has done really, really well. And he's being looked at by a lot of people as potentially England's left back for many, many years to come. I think Livramento started at left back last night. So there is competition. He's not the only one vying for that role. But Miles Lewis-Skelly, having had this huge and very quick rise, I would say, to the point where he then earned an England call-up, got an England cap, scored an England goal. He's found himself out of the Arsenal team at the start of this season, and he's found himself left out of an England squad for a game that he travelled for. So you can imagine that it's been quite a difficult start to the season for Miles Lewis-Skelly, just in terms of mentally kind of adjusting to that. Now, I'm not saying it's anything to worry about or to panic about. He's still a very, very young man. He'll get his opportunities. He'll get his moments. He probably broke through a little bit earlier than people expected. And as a result of that, he's having to kind of take a step back before he takes a couple more steps forward. That's just the way it goes. I think, he's mentally strong enough, and he sounds as if he's got great people around him to help him cope with that. But it just kind of dawned on me a little bit yesterday when I saw that news that this is a young man who's had all the highs and he's probably having to deal with a couple of lows at the moment. Now, being part of the England camp at that age, it's not to be sniffed at. It's still pretty special and pretty cool, obviously. But I think if you've, had the heights that he has, tasted the glory that he has in terms of, establishing yourself as a regular and a key player in a Premier League title challenging team, and then you've kind of been replaced at the start of the season, and then you become an England international, and then the same thing happens there. It must be quite difficult to process. So I'm sure he'll be fine, but it's worth thinking about that. Personally, I don't want any of our players to play during the international break because I want them all to be wrapped up in cotton wool. So I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But from a player's perspective, you want to play, you want to be involved, you want to be a part of it. And so that must be a little bit of a punch in the gut. In terms of some of our other Arsenal players that went out to represent England in Belgrade, there's a couple of names that we got to really kind of focus on. And I want to focus on, first of all, on Noni Madueke. Noni Madueke was really, really effective last night for England. And Noni Madueke, I think, at the start of his Arsenal career, has already taken steps towards kind of proving people wrong, including myself. Am I going to be served with a huge slice of humble pie at the end of this season, maybe even earlier than that? You know what? I hope so, because I want him to succeed. I want him to do well. I said this to you guys a couple of weeks ago as well. I think it was after the Leeds game. For me, I wasn't sold on the idea of bringing Noni Madueke to Arsenal. I did feel that we had overpaid. I did worry at that point in time that signing was going to restrict us with regards to other business that we could do in the window. And credit to Arsenal, that proved not to be the case. We signed Madueke, we went out and got Gyökeres, we went out and got Eze, we went out and got Hincapie, all after that addition and that signing. So you've got to tip your hat to Arsenal and give them their flowers for that. And as I've said all along, and as I said at the time, if you brought Madueke in addition to some of those other players, then I would look at the signing very, very differently. And I certainly hold my hands up and say that I went a little bit early on the kind of frustration that I vented around that particular signing. But so far, in an Arsenal shirt, I think he's done quite well. I think he was one of our better players at Anfield, as I mentioned on yesterday's podcast. And watching him more and more, I think I now understand a lot more about why Mikel Arteta felt that he could really add something to this Arsenal team. And obviously, we're without Bukayo Saka now. So to be without Bukayo Saka and have a ready-made replacement, I'm not saying he's as good as Saka, but to have someone that can come in and play that position really naturally and give you a lot of the same threat in that he can dribble, he can carry the ball, he can go inside, he can go outside, he can score goals. It really does help. And it means that we're not disrupting our patterns of play. We're not having to go back to the drawing board. We're not completely toothless on that right-hand side. We've got someone that can come in and fill those boots. But for me, it's his directness. It's his dribbling ability. It's his pace. It's his trickery. It was a decent finish as well against Serbia last night. Sort of lifted it over the onrushing goalkeeper. Yeah, look, he did brilliantly. And I think, based on the early signs, there's a very, very good chance. And let's be honest, and let's be clear about this. I'll happily eat it. I'm about to be served with a big bit of humble pie. And I hope that is the case. I really, truly do. I thought Thomas Tuchel's comments on him were quite interesting. Thomas Tuchel on Noni Madueke said, I'm very happy today because he played with hunger and with a directness. And on top of that, he needs to stay focused. I'm most happy today about his attitude, his work off the ball, the work he put in to help Reece James, because we've played a back four against the back five. So to help against the wing backs and to push forward. The work rate is what I like most in his performance today. He's fast, he's direct, and he likes to dribble. That's what we want from him. So lots of praise for Noni Madueke coming from Thomas Tuchel. And I think as Arsenal fans, this feels like it's going to, be a positive thing for us. And that is a very different feeling to the initial one when we were first linked, etc., etc. And have I learned a lesson from this? Yeah. Don't go too big. Don't go too strong. Don't allow yourself to fall into the trap that a transfer window can set for you. And I said this throughout the window, so I make no apologies for this. I kind of, and when I say I make no apologies, I apologize for the way that I was sort of dismissive of the Noni Madueke signing. I do. What I don't apologize for is caring deeply for how Arsenal fared in the transfer window, because it felt like a massive window for us. It felt like a really, really important window for us. And as I said, to the club's credit, we went out and showed that and demonstrated that and signed players for all the positions that we were in need of reinforcement. So you've got to give Arsenal their credit for that. On Declan Rice, a couple of assists from him. He seemed to play a role that mirrors his Arsenal role a little bit more, which is that slightly more advanced 8 role. Elliot Anderson being in the team, I think, has helped with that in terms of on the international stage. I mean, I was at the Euros a couple of summers ago now. And I remember watching Declan Rice sitting at the base of the midfield and thinking, yeah, he's going to be solid defensively and he's going to cover ground and he's going to prevent you from being exposed on the counter attack and all the rest of it. But does he have that passing range? Does he have that kind of tempo setting ability to sit at the base and dictate the play and help you unlock stubborn teams and low blocks and difficult defenses? And the truth was, I came away from that tournament thinking no. And I think Mikel Arteta had already realized that, was aware of that, and obviously made some changes and tweaks to his role. And, we've since got more out of him in an attacking sense, which I think is a little bit more in line with what Declan Rice is now, as opposed to what he was when he arrived at the football club. He's developed, he's changed, he's been molded into something different, and that's absolutely fine. 2 assists for England last night, which is obviously brilliant. But I think what last night did was highlight to the wider footballing world what a brilliant set-piece taker Declan Rice is. Whenever Arsenal score goals from set pieces, whether it be from a Saka corner or from a Rice corner from the opposite side, you always get that kind of instant reaction of, oh, it's Nicholas Jover again, the Arsenal set-piece coach. And the camera pans to him, standing on the edge of his technical area, barking out instructions, pointing where to go, where to stand, etc., etc. And I think in all of that focus on Arsenal's set-piece routines, which are brilliant, by the way, I think it's kind of got lost what a brilliant deliverer of the ball Declan Rice is and can be. And obviously showed that on the international stage for England again yesterday against Serbia. Now, just on England, there's a kind of more broader point before we move on. I've seen so much talk and criticism about Thomas Tuchel's England already. Listen, ultimately, for me, they'll be judged on how they fare at the World Cup. There's no doubt that Thomas Tuchel is a better tactician than Gareth Southgate, who did really, really well. So give Thomas Tuchel a chance, man. Like, he's going to qualify, and he's going to qualify comfortably. Okay, England's qualification results are brilliant. Okay, maybe the performances haven't always been what you've been after as an England fan. And I suppose going into a tournament, you want to be convinced and you want to believe, don't you? And the only way you build that belief is by watching your team every time you turn up, performing really, really well, playing a cohesive and effective brand of football. And that's not always the case with England. But I would argue that's not the case with international football in general, with the exception of one or two nations. And when I say the exceptions, I'm talking about Spain, basically, who, are so kind of aligned in the way that they bring up players, in the way that they coach at club level, generally speaking, that when those players all come together, there isn't really that much blending that needs to happen. It's kind of a natural fit. It's kind of like putting jigsaw pieces together. They are cut out and carved to fit with one another. And the base level, the basis of their philosophies and mindsets and understandings of the game, because they're all coached in a very similar way, all marry up. And that's why Spain probably look more like a club team than any other international team on the planet. But things being a little bit all over the place and not always being as free-flowing and as connected, that is normal for international football. So with England, like, let's just see how they fare at the World Cup. Like, they've got a great chance. They've got a good squad. They've got a better manager now, in my opinion. Why do we want to write him off before he's even had the opportunity to show what he can do on that stage? The fact that he's a German coach, I don't think helps in this. And I think even if it's subconsciously, you've got people sort of, I'm not going to say not wanting him to succeed. Like, they want him to succeed, obviously, if they're England fans. But I think they kind of look at him and they go, well, I wasn't sure about that in the first place. And when you're like that, and it's a bit like what we've experienced with Mikel Arteta, isn't it? Where, he sort of came in, he wasn't everybody's choice, wasn't my choice either at the time. But there were a lot of people that sort of took ages to warm to him because of that, because they couldn't shake that initial feeling that they had. And I think there's a little bit of that with Thomas Tuchel as the England boss. But Thomas Tuchel's record speaks for itself. If you were one of those people that was moaning and complaining about Gareth Southgate, then you can't complain when when England go out and bring in one of the best coaches in the business. So, let's see how it goes. But don't write them off based on qualifiers and friendlies and all the rest of it. It's just not. It's not indicative, is it, of their chances, I don't think, at a World Cup. Right, short pause. When we come back, we're going to talk Odegaard, Calafiori, Hincapie, Martinelli, Gabriel, and we're going to tackle a very interesting question, as I say, that popped up in the YouTube comments just a few days ago. Let's take a short pause, and when we come back, we'll get into all of that. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner Pod.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Like and subscribe. It really, really does help. Check us out on Patreon if you so wish as well. Follow me on Instagram at Harry_Symeou, I think, and on TikTok, just Harry Symeou. Come over, give us a subscribe or follow, whatever you call it on those platforms. Anyway, let's talk Martin Odegaard. He captained Norway to a historic 11-1 victory over Moldova. He created 2 and scored 1. Now, I know you got to factor in the level of the opposition, but it's quite a confidence boost for the Arsenal skipper, isn't it? Just to point this out as a side note, I think Haaland scored 5. But I think Odegaard looked like he was playing with a confidence based on the highlights I've seen, and with a sort of a fluency that we haven't really seen a lot. Is it the haircut? A lot of people telling me it's to do with the haircut. Maybe it is. Who knows? I'd love him to lose the goatee as well. I think if he does that, then Martin Odegaard will truly be back, because ultimately, in all seriousness, that is what it's down to, isn't it? It's about your facial hair and your haircut. But it was good to see. It was good to see Martin Odegaard. And again, it's Moldova, and I'm not going to get too carried away. And that doesn't guarantee that he's going to come back and play brilliantly on Saturday against Nottingham Forest. But it's good to see him, first of all, in and among the goals. And secondly, it's good to see him providing again. That is what Martin Odegaard's game is first and foremost all about. So good to see that. Good, nice comment here. Did you get your payment from Josh come through this morning? Josh Kroenke, that is. Mine was in first thing. No, you know what? I haven't. That's why I've been a miserable git over the course of the summer, because Josh Kroenke's stopped. He stopped funding me. So yeah, the PR stuff is gone. I can't do it anymore. I'm not being paid. Right. Riccardo Calafiori elsewhere was an unused substitute in Italy's 5-4 win over Israel. That was a really dramatic game, and I was watching bits and pieces of it because I had it on a different screen, but I did have the Greeks against Denmark game on my main screen. But I remember watching bits and pieces of that and thinking, Italy, what are you doing? Like, every time you put yourselves in a position to take what would be a vital 3 points, you then leave the door open and you allow Israel to fight back. Thankfully, Italy, for me, because I like Italian football a lot, and I'm a sort of adopted fan of the Azzurri because of my love for the Serie A. Thankfully, Italy were able to get over the line and make it 5-4 with a late goal. And that's a big, significant result for them. But we went into this international break, didn't we, worried about Riccardo Calafiori, probably more than anybody else, because of his history with picking up injuries on the international stage. But he's come through it, by the looks of things, unscathed. And being an unused substitute, well, that's just the perfect outcome as far as I'm concerned. I want to talk a little bit about Piero Hincapie. He helped Ecuador to a clean sheet that saw them beat the defending world champions Argentina by 1-0. Ecuador finished second in the South American qualification section with 28 points, conceding the fewest number of goals. Another defensive beast has arrived at Arsenal. There's a really, really good compilation going around of Hincapie from last night's game. And what do you see in that? Well, you see him eating up the ground very, very quickly, using his long legs and his ability to accelerate into spaces to clean up and get there ahead of attackers. You see him coming down that left-hand side quite a bit on the outside, making overlaps, carrying the ball to the byline, trying to deliver crosses. You also see him tucking into that half space and coming forward from left back that way as well, which shows there's a variety to the way that Piero Hincapie likes to attack. Reminds me, in terms of how he attacks, of Riccardo Calafiori in a lot of ways. Is he a better defender than Calafiori? I think we're going to see over time. I sort of went into this season with the kind of idea that, you know, Calafiori, great going forward, but just a little bit suspect defensively. And I still haven't completely wiped that thought from my mind. But watching him at Anfield, where he had to kind of just dig in that little bit deeper and sit, you know, in a more kind of disciplined manner because of the threat posed by Mo Salah. And then watching him do that really competently and really comfortably, it did restore my faith in Riccardo Calafiori's defensive capabilities. But look, Hincapie looks like a really, really special player. We know that he's absolutely loved and adored in Ecuador. We know that he is one of the players that they are most proud of. And yeah, he's been a part of a really big result and a really big performance, and one that has real positive implications on Ecuador and you know, their hopes of making a mark at the World Cup. So yeah, great to see. Elsewhere, sticking with the theme of South America, Gabriel Martinelli and Big Gabby, they were both part of the squad for Brazil, who suffered a shock 1-0 defeat to Bolivia, but neither of them featured, which again might not be ideal for them, having traveled all that way, but for me is perfect. I don't want them to play. Wrap them up in cotton wool, absolutely fine. Elsewhere, David Raya was an unused sub for Spain. Timber was an unused sub for the Netherlands. Trossard played just 23 minutes for Belgium. Mosquera didn't feature for the under 21. So that kind of sums up what's happened over the last couple of nights in terms of Arsenal's international players out with their countries and doing their thing, representing their nations. Right, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about a question that came up in the chat. And this is very, very relevant to the debate that you guys were having in the live chat before we even went live, because the question surrounds a certain Gabriel Martinelli. Let's get into that now. Okay, so this question came up on YouTube in the comments section a couple of times. In fact, maybe 3 or 4 times. It was worded differently and posed by different people. But I guess the general shape of the question is the same. So I've decided to pick one of those questions. And the question was, would a positional switch for Martinelli, I'm thinking, into a more central area, put him back on the right track? Now, during the live stream of today's show, and particularly at the beginning, there was a lot of people saying, you know, he's done and he's not going to do it for us anymore, and we need to move him on, and we need to stop putting our hopes on him. And there are others that are defending Gabriel Martinelli and saying you're just making him a scapegoat, etc., etc., etc. And this speaks to the way that football discourse online has become, basically, whereby like nobody can have an opinion that is anywhere near the kind of center. It's always got to be one extreme or the other. And if you do have an opinion that's kind of more central, like I would say most people's is, those that are on either side of the extremes will tell you that they don't believe you, and actually they'll just completely ignore the fact that you've made points pertaining to both sides of the argument. Okay, so let me be clear on my thoughts on the Gabriel Martinelli situation. And listen, everybody's entitled to theirs, but my thoughts are very, very clear. Gabriel Martinelli has not developed in the way that I hoped he would. Now, this is a guy that when Gabriel Martinelli first broke into the Arsenal side, when he first came into the picture, when he was first scoring goals in the Europa League at the time, I remember saying to people, I haven't been this excited about a Arsenal talent since Cesc Fabregas. So you can't claim that I was never a fan of the player and that I've got this agenda. If anything, I'd want to be proven right, having made such a bold and strong statement about the player. But it's undeniable that Gabriel Martinelli is struggling at the moment. It's undeniable that he's not playing anywhere near his best football. And the longer this period in which he underperforms continues, the more questions people are going to ask. And that is absolutely fair. Am I saying that I want him gone? No. Am I saying that he can't help Arsenal in any way? No. Am I saying that he's terrible? No. I'm just saying that right now, when you look at our options on that left-hand side, which now include Ebere Eze, Noni Madueke, and Leandro Trossard, on top of Gabriel Martinelli, there isn't a case anymore for him to be starting week in, week out. That's my view. That's my opinion. There's a lot of people in the chat box that agree with that. There's also some pushback. Jid, in particular, in the chat box says often that I'm making him a scapegoat. I mean, Jid, if you want to join the live stream right now, let me know in the chat and I'll ping you a link straight away and you can come on and you can explain your points, because I think that you're misrepresenting what my opinion is and what the opinion of a lot of people is, which is not that Gabriel Martinelli's crap and that we should get rid of him and that we're trying to scapegoat him. It's just that given the options that we have right now, because we have more than we had last season, we've brought 2 players in over the summer, 2 attacking players that can both operate from that left-hand side. Most of us don't think he should start anymore. That's it. That's not scapegoating. That's not jumping on a bandwagon. That's not having an agenda. That is just an opinion based on the performances of one of our current players. I don't really see what's wrong with that. But to take it back to the question, while Jid ponders over whether or not he's going to join the stream, I'll be surprised if he does, because I've asked him to on a few occasions when he's challenged my points, and it's never happened. So, yeah, like while we're kind of allowing him some time to ponder over that, and you don't have to come on with a camera if you don't want, mate. If that's the issue, you can do just audio only. It's not a problem. Back to the original question of, would a positional switch for Martinelli, I'm thinking into a more central area, put him back on the right track? Honestly, at this point, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because there's a part of me that in the past felt that Gabriel Martinelli would be more effective through the middle. But then when you play against the low block, against a team that sits deep, and he hasn't got space to run in behind, and he can't play off the shoulder, I struggled to kind of realize how he would essentially be involved in the game enough for it to be beneficial to us as a football team. You stick him on the left flank, and you give him an opportunity to run at people and to take people on 1v1. That kind of always felt like his game, but it was always with the caveat of, yes, he can drift infield, and maybe having a different type of striker, I felt, in like Gyökeres, who will maybe drift a little bit further left, was going to open that corridor for him to come in. But I'm just, at the start of this season, I'm not really seeing it. I can never question his work rate. I never would. I think he's been fantastic in that sense. And from a defensive standpoint, I don't think you can question him. But what I will say is this. Right now, he's not making the right decisions in the final third. Right now, he's not producing enough in the final third for him to be holding down a starting place in this team when we have Noni Madueke in our ranks and Ebere Eze. So, we started him in the first couple of games. Fine, whatever. But going forward now, I want to see him taken out of the team for the good of the team, and maybe for the good of Martinelli as well. Give him an opportunity to come out and just reset a little bit. Come on with 20 minutes to go when the game's stretched and the game state suits you better. That might be the way that you get Gabriel Martinelli back on track and playing his best football. Maybe that is the way to go. I'm not saying bin him off completely. I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm not saying don't have him a part of the squad, or that we should be trying to sell him regardless of how low balled we get in terms of the offer. I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply saying that maybe the way now to get the best out of Martinelli, forget about positional changes, because until his confidence level is higher, I think we're just going to see the same thing. So that's my answer to that question. It looks like Jid has joined. Jid, can you hear us, mate? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Jid? Yep, got you, mate. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it. Welcome. Go on. Tell me.
I told you I
was
open to it.
Come on, let's do it. Let's have the debate. Let's have the discussion. Look, because I think you've misunderstood my position. I think you think that I think Martinelli's a crap player and I don't want him anywhere near the Arsenal team, which is not the case. I just think that right now, on his current form, he doesn't deserve a starting place going into the weekend, for example. Why do you feel like we're making him a scapegoat?
Okay. First of all, I think we need to make two distinctions. There's some distinctions here. So the issue is, there are two separate lines of schools of thought. There are guys who think that he's not good enough to play, he's not good enough to start, he's crap, we should sell him. And then there are guys who think that he might not be a starter. We should not conflate the two and make it seem like it's a similar camp. It's not. There are guys who really think that he's the worst thing to happen to our left flank. My issue is, I don't think he is. You can drop him off if you want to, and there is an argument towards that, but you cannot pretend like he's just been this rubbish player. First of all, he doesn't get the amount of support that Saka does. Saka plays with Odegaard, he plays with White or Timber, because that's how the team is set up. There's this misconception with the fan base that thinks that both our flanks should be symmetrical, or they are symmetrical in how we set up. They're not. We favor our right side the same way Liverpool favors their right side. That doesn't mean Luis Diaz is rubbish because Salah far outscored him or out-assisted him last season. They still won the league with him. So there has to be that appreciation for the fact that he might not be playing at the best level, but he's got less support. The team is built around Saka, and as I like to opine about, he's outscored Saka in 2 of the last 3 seasons whilst playing crap, according to people. So he might not be, let's say, good enough to start at the moment, according to some, but he's not so terrible that there is this disparity between him and Saka when it comes to the flanks.
So I agree with most of that. I agree with you when you say that he gets less support. I agree with you when you say that we have this idea as fans generally that the 2 flanks should be symmetrical and they're not. I completely agree with that. That's why I don't understand why you think that I think he's so terrible. I think you've made some brilliant points, and I agree with pretty much everything you've said there. But
like I
think,
say, there's 2 different schools of thought. I think maybe you're thinking I'm attacking your position when I'm attacking the positions of people who think that he is terrible. Like, there is no discernible distinction between him and Saka last season, but somehow Saka's a star boy and he's crap. But if you're to ask people, I've asked AJ, he could join us in the stream. What is it that makes Saka so good and Martinelli so bad? Where is the threshold? Nobody can give you that answer. It's just aesthetics. It's what people see. They see Martinelli failing to beat a player on a run, all of a sudden he's crap. But you cannot be that overly simplistic in your analysis. Some of these things are also instructions from the manager. He could tell Martinelli that when we get the ball on the left, we're doing runs. You're being fed by the inverted left back or by Rice, and you're making a run behind. And for Saka, it's something different. But people don't put that into consideration. All they care about is the aesthetics, how things look on the pitch.
Yeah, and again, very, very valid points. Like, I think for me with Martinelli, I think he's a good winger, right? But I feel like as you level up as a team and as you get to a space where you want to be challenging for the very biggest trophies, and you saw it against PSG, in my opinion, right? Where you had, the likes of Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Doué, all of those guys from a wide area could make something happen out of nothing. And I looked at our options, and I know, Bukayo Saka wasn't 100% fit, and I think that showed actually towards the back end of last season. But with Martinelli, I never have that sense anymore. I always feel like as we kind of get to the crunch point that he's always going to be just a little bit off that level that's required. I think, like, as I just mentioned before you came on, mate, I think if you were to take him out of the firing line a little bit now and you were to bring him on with 20 minutes to go, when a game is stretched, when a game is a little bit more open, when the opposition, hopefully in a situation where we have the lead, have to come out at us and there's a bit more space in behind and there's a bit more room to expose, I would love to bring him on in that game state and see him go and score a couple of goals. And maybe that will be the trigger point. Maybe that will be what gets him back to that kind of zone he was in previously, where he was really confident, where he was playing on instinct, where he wasn't getting the ball stuck under his feet, where he wasn't hesitating about what to do next, and he just allowed the instinct to take over. Maybe it's the confidence. Maybe the confidence is the biggest problem. But how do you build that back up? Taking him out of the team sounds like it would damage his confidence in theory, and I get that. But there's a part of me that really does believe that in this instance, that's the only way forward now. If you were Mikel Arteta, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but again, this speaks to aesthetics, right? People are putting him on the firing line, like you said. Saka wasn't doing so well. Havertz is another person who's been scapegoated by a large contingent of our fan base, right? People don't think he's good enough as well. You've defended him. I've seen you defend him. It's the same thing. So the way you defend Havertz is the way I'll probably defend Martinelli's, because sometimes people don't understand the role that a person is there to play. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert. I do have a little knowledge on this, but not as much. But the thing is, when it comes to Martinelli, there are instructions that are given to him, right? And you can see with the way he plays that he's playing towards certain instructions. Now, when it comes to taking him out of the team, it like you said, it's a double-edged sword, because you could take him out of the team and that would damage his confidence, especially if the reason why he's being taken out is because of fan backlash. A manager is not there to appeal to fans. He's not there to cater to fans or fans' wishes, because if you take a poll of everybody here, everybody's got different ideas of who should start, where they should start, what formations we should play. So who should the club listen to then? Should they listen to Mickey? Should they listen to James? Should they listen to Gary? Should they listen to Lloyd? Should they listen to AJ? There's so many people with so many ideas of what should happen. So the club should not listen to a contingent of fans who've got their own agendas. The same people who said Arteta was not good enough to get us back into Europe, and then changed their minds to no, he's not good enough to have us competing. Then went back to okay, he's not good enough to win us a trophy. Now they're the people who are driving the agendas and they're driving the narratives to say Martinelli should be dropped. Now we want glory all of a sudden. We should not be catering to that, and the club shouldn't as well, which is why I think Arteta will keep on showing him faith. This is Martinelli. We're not here to, the club's not here to placate to fans. It's a harsh truth, but people need to hear it, and they might not know as much. If you cannot understand the instructions being given to a player, don't be, I say this a lot in the chat, don't be that person who says, well, if the club knew what they're doing. You can have opinions. You can say, I feel the club should do this. This is what my feelings are. But you shouldn't come and be like, well, if the clubs knew what they're doing, or if these guys knew anything about running a football club, they would. You don't know anything.
Yeah, well, that speaks to what I was saying earlier, isn't it? That if you have an opinion that's somewhere in the middle, then people will tell you that they don't believe you, because we've just lost our ability as a society. It's not even just about football, like in anything. You look at some of the conflicts going on around the world at the moment, and there are people that, look at both sides. And whenever you say that, people go, well, hold on a minute. Like, you can't possibly see both sides, because everybody's of the mindset that we have to be so binary in everything. Like, it's one way or the other, and that's it. And there's no middle ground, which is unfortunately why so many of these conflicts won't ever get sorted out or won't ever completely go away, because nobody's willing to kind of meet in the middle. And that has gone from society into the world of football. And in the world of football, we have these opinions that are kind of, very, very strong one way or the other, and nobody's ever going to back down, and nobody's ever going to agree. But do you honestly believe, and this is a question to you, do you honestly believe that Mikel Arteta watches Gabriel Martinelli every single week and goes, he's giving me exactly what I want right now? Because I think he is, in some senses, like from a defensive point of view, from a work rate point of view, he absolutely, I think, ticks every box. But then if Mikel is satisfied with what Martinelli's producing right now, does that speak to a manager that prioritizes defense over attacking capability? And does that then make some people right who claim that Mikel Arteta's maybe got his priorities wrong?
Hey, AJ says he's joined.
He has.
So, yeah,
we'll bring him in a second.
Understand
Just
the
answer the
question.
question. We'll bring him in.
Yeah. Okay, so to answer your question, it depends on the instructions. We cannot pretend to know all the instructions a player is given. We know how meticulous he is about the instructions that he gives, right? So Arteta is a guy who likes to overmanage, or he micro.
Oh, have we lost Jid there? I think we've lost him. I think we've lost you, mate. Maybe just jump out and back in. Not sure what's happened there. I think his connection's just dipped because I'm not getting any sound come through. Let's bring in AJ, who's also joined the chat. AJ, how you doing?
You right, Harry?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Sorry, no camera available, just kind of on the move. But
no worries.
Yeah, I just wanted to join the chat with regards to this whole debate of our squad and Martinelli and the position and where we find ourselves with him. Essentially, I know Jid's made some points with regards to Martinelli, but there needs to be a distinction made between people who obviously hate and scapegoat. That's kind of my problem with those words being thrown around, saying we hate him or he's a scapegoat only because we believe we could potentially upgrade on him, or perhaps we have concerns. There is a part of aesthetics, but I think that's always been the case of football when you're talking about productivity and, stats play a big part of these things. And I know Jid talks about Martinelli being our second top goal scorer, but once again, was that a very fluid attack that we were seeing last year? I'd beg to differ. I think we had a lot of issues in attack, which is why we've seen 3 attacking players come in this summer window with Gyökeres, Madueke and Eze. So I think it's a bit maybe disingenuous to say because he's our second top goal scorer, therefore we shouldn't have criticism about him. I don't really look at football like that. It's a lot more complex than I think we're actually discussing here. And I don't think any Arsenal fans, well, I call them fans, I don't think any of us go into a season believing, okay, I wish this player does bad for XYZ. I think you all want the betterment for our team. At the end of the day, we want to see Arsenal be as successful as possible. So I'm just wondering where that kind of mindset is coming from. I know there's a lot of content creators who share their opinion in a certain way, but that's just something that I question personally.
Yeah, I mean, Jid, I think we've got you back now. Can you hear us? Have we got him back? I don't know if we have. I can't hear him coming through. Jid, are you there, mate? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, we'll bring him back in if he manages to get back into the studio and it's all working fine. But no, listen, respect to both of you, man, because I really appreciate you both sort of jumping on at the drop of a hat. But just to kind of wrap up, AJ, I do agree with you when you say that the way I respond, the way I feel about it is that it's frustrating when you're sort of making a nuanced point or you're making a point that you believe to be fair, but then you're being grouped with the people that are truly scapegoating the guy. That's where I get irritated, because me saying that I don't think he should start ahead of Madueke and Eze doesn't mean that I can't stand him. I've been lucky enough to interview Gabby, and I think he's a great guy and he's fantastic, and I really want him to succeed. But at the moment, he's just not doing it. Should we try Jid again? Jid, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
We can't hear him coming through. He says he's back.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. Go on, Jid. Do you want to just respond to what AJ said? I don't know if you caught what he was saying. It was basically along the lines of, like, you make some good points, but we're not all like that. Do you know what I mean? We're not all so anti-Martinelli, and that's why, maybe we shouldn't actually be giving that agenda the airtime or the oxygen, and actually we should just be having sensible discussions among ourselves.
I want to also sorry. Oh, go ahead, Jid. I was just going to add something to the flanks. What you talked about the flanks, because I have my kind of opinion on the flanks that you mentioned. But if you want to make your point, then I can follow up after that.
All right. Finally, I can get to speak to AJ, and you can stop spamming the chat. So, my response to that is, we have to be honest with ourselves. There are people here who care more about being right than they care about usually the team. There are people who've been loud and proud being anti-Arteta. So for them, they know they've hitched their wagon towards that, and they do not want anything to actually change their mind from that or to be proven wrong. We can say we like to be proven wrong as much as we can, as much as we like, but let's be honest, human nature, we like to be proven right more than we do being proven wrong. So from my point of view, there are a lot of people who care more about being right when it comes to guys like Martinelli, when it comes to people like Odegaard, Kai Havertz. They could be doing well, and they're just hoping for the time when they miss that golden chance in game 9 out of I don't know how many, where they can say, aha, you see, told you he wasn't good enough. And we've seen this a lot with a lot of players. A guy would have a good run of games, and then the one bad game he has, that's the proof that he's rubbish. So that's where that's my response to that. I hope I actually answered the question, because I didn't hear all of it.
AJ?
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that sentiment. It is part of human nature with regards to perhaps seeing things a certain ways. I think we will try to remove ourselves of biases. I mean, I'm sure Harry, I'm sure Jid as well. At work, they talk about biases that we have, that were subconscious biases that we're not even aware of. But I do think that the pendulum can also swing the other way, where we can't have these issues, we can't have these discussions about some concerns we're having, and then we just get labeled like, oh, it's hate or scapegoating. So with regards to the flanks, and this is what I want to say about Saka and Martinelli, I don't have the transfer market sheet in front of me saying the goals and assists and who does this and who does what, right? But I think the pundits, and I think the fan, and I think just overall the discussions around these players are somewhat important, right? It doesn't mean that I have to listen exactly to what Gary Neville was saying, but if Sky Sports are discussing the output of these players and what they're doing well and maybe what they're not doing well, I think that's something to at least, take with a pinch of salt and maybe use that to formulate your arguments. Perhaps with the bias you said about Salah and Luis Diaz, I think you're talking about Liverpool. Could it be that they have that bias because Salah generally is seen as a better player than Luis Diaz. Maybe that's why they have that bias. I look at like Bayern Munich teams back in the day when maybe they had more of a bias to Arjen Robben in comparison to the other flanks. And on the other side, they had Ribery and other wingers and so on and so forth. It could be that we have that bias, right, to Saka and Odegaard and Ben White, when they made that trio, and Timber as well, mainly because Arteta believes that's the best form of attack going forward. He might not trust Martinelli as much in that particular department. Now, obviously, you can harken back to the 22-23 season when Xhaka was a part of the team and we had Xhaka, Martinelli, Jesus was there, Zinchenko was there. And to me, that was the best Martinelli has played. But I've also seen isolation games. And what I mean by that is I've seen Timber not be in the squad. I've seen Ben White not be in the squad. I've seen Odegaard not be in the squad. And once again, this is just what I'm watching with my eyes. And I've seen Saka perform at a level. Maybe this is just the way my eyes are seeing it. Maybe it's just the way Harry's eyes are seeing it. But that's my main concern with Martinelli is I'm seeing a guy head down, running into players. He doesn't seem to have the confidence. The incorrect decision making. He seems like he shoots when he should pass when he should shots. And this is just my observation. This is just my own personal take. To group me with a bunch of fans because of my own personal take, I mean, we do this all the time, right? But that's the concerns. And I also think, does that lead to something that Arteta thought, you know what, he still kept Trossard, right? There's Eze that he bought as well. Trossard and Martinelli did share some minutes, maybe not as much because I think I mentioned that point and you argued me against that point. But Trossard also, some people will say he's been the better left winger over the last year or so. So there's also that. So I think there's a lot to take with this Martinelli thing. It's more complicated maybe than was making it out to be. But I just worry about him kicking on and that next development. I'm kind of with Harry there. I don't know in the evolution of Arsenal if he's if he's bona fide the starting winger that we should have, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he needs to leave. But I don't know. That's just my take.
It's part of leveling up, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to respond to there, right? So yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. My only issue is like when you spoke about Salah, Diaz, Robin, and them. You say yourself, Salah was far much better than Diaz. Didn't make Diaz crap. Didn't mean that Diaz was not good enough.
Yeah,
that's the juxtaposition that we have to take. When we look at our side, we try to rationalize why didn't we win last season, and we always have to pick that one player that we have to kind of not us. Let me not generalize because you're gonna think this is a personal attack on you. No, it's a large swath of the fan base. Large, it's significant enough for me to kind of want to generalize. But yes, there is a time where we try to rationalize why we didn't win the league or why we didn't win something, and then we have to pick that one player. Saka is probably better than Martinelli, but that doesn't then mean Martinelli is not good enough. That is where my argument comes, because you said it yourself, Salah is better than Diaz, but you never said Diaz was crap, or you never said the other guy from Robin was crap as well. So there is where my problem lies. The fact that
Yeah, go on, Jade. No, I was just going to say, I didn't mean to interject, but I was just going to say, if Liverpool had the opportunity to then upgrade on Luis Diaz, would that be a problem then? If they're trying to get a winger that is closer to maybe Salah's level, if they believe that there is actually a level or two between them.
Yeah, then all power to them, they could do it. But I could say that I could make the same argument for just about any player at Arsenal. If we had a choice to upgrade Saliba or whoever, that's an argument that can be made for anybody. We can literally upgrade on anybody in the team. That's not good when it comes to analyzing the problems with the team for me, because just saying, well, that means we can upgrade on this. Yeah, we can upgrade on anybody, and it will still might not even fix the problems that we have. That's where my take is. So when it comes to Martinelli, for example, he might not be playing as well. I'm not going to pretend like he's been having the seasons of his life, but the output is still there. He's not. I would consider benching him. I wouldn't lie, but I wouldn't say he's crap. That is where I have an issue.
And that is absolutely right. I agree with you that we shouldn't be saying he's crap. And this is where we need. This is where I'm so glad that we've done this today, right? Because I think having these conversations, we actually realize that we have a lot more in common in terms of our views on certain players than we maybe initially believed. Because you've only got a certain amount of characters in a live chat. Okay, you can only say so much. And it's fast-paced and it's moving all the time. And especially for me, when I'm trying to talk and trying to read the comments as well, it's you don't always grasp the full point that someone's trying to make. So that's why I think these conversations are really, really important. We all agree that we want Arsenal to succeed. We all agree that we want Arsenal to do well. We all agree that we want Arsenal to go on and win the Premier League. Some people think that Martinelli's good enough. Others think he's not. Ultimately, we all want the same thing. I want to say a massive thank you to both of you guys for jumping on, because it was at the drop of the hat. Really, really appreciate it. Jid, thank you so much, mate. Love to have you on again sometime. I thought you spoke brilliantly. Really enjoyed the conversation. AJ, same with you, mate. You were absolutely fantastic. Thank you to you both for your regular listenership. And I hope to speak to you both very soon.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Take care.
Cheers, guys. That was Jid and AJ, two regulars in our live chat, joining us on the Chronicles of Aguna to have their say on the Gabriel Martinelli debate. Will it make more sense to play him in a more central role? That was the original question we started with. For me, just to summarize before I sign out, I don't think it would make that much difference right now. I think he's got to be taken out of the team. I think you've got to try and find a way of building up his confidence. And while taking him out of the team sounds counterproductive in that sense, in terms of the effect it might have, I actually think in the long term, it will do him good, because it will stop the scrutiny. And if he comes off the bench and impacts games without being expected to deliver huge amounts that he's currently not capable of producing from the start, I think people will start to frame the Martinelli discussion differently. That will reduce the criticism. That should help in terms of his confidence. And hopefully we get him back to being the player that we all know he can be, which is a really, really effective player. He's not perfect, but he's a really, really effective footballer when utilized in the right way and when playing with instinct and confidence. So hopefully we see him back to his best sooner rather than later. Ultimately, that's what we all want. Right, going to leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on today's pod. Really, really do appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you're listening to us on Apple, leave us a review. If you're listening to us on Spotify, leave us a review. And if you want to go one further and become a part of the debate and the conversation in the Chronicles of Aguna community, you can join us on Patreon, where there's a chat feature. You could speak to me directly. I speak to you guys. We have a lovely relationship over there. So go over and check it out. Patreon.com/the Chronicles of Aguna. I'll see you all on the next episode. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful Wednesday. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.